Right now, in 2026, something is happening in the financial system that has never happened before. For the first time in history, a digital asset originally designed to replace the correspondent banking system is being evaluated for ETF approval in the United States, while simultaneously operating as licensed, regulated payment infrastructure inside Japanese banks, Middle Eastern payment corridors, and emerging markets across Africa and Southeast Asia. That asset is XRP, and here is what makes 2026 different from every previous moment in XRP's history. The legal barriers are gone, the regulatory classification is confirmed, the institutional capital is already moving, and the infrastructure, the actual plumbing that makes XRP worth anything to a financial institution, has been running, processing real transactions in real licensed environments for over a decade. This is not the beginning of XRP's story. This is the moment 22 years of building finally becomes impossible for the mainstream financial world to ignore. But to understand why 2026 is the year everything changes, you have to go back to where it all started. Vancouver, 2004. A software engineer who saw the entire future of money, and nobody listened. The man who saw it coming. His name was Ryan Fugger, and in 2004, 2 years before Bitcoin's white paper existed, 14 years before institutional crypto desks were a thing, and 22 years before the ETF conversation we are having right now, he sat down and designed the exact solution to the exact problem that is still breaking the global financial system today. The problem was this. When money moves between countries, it does not travel directly. It moves through a chain of intermediary banks, each one taking a fee, each one adding days of delay, running on a messaging system called SWIFT that was built in 1973. The same year the first mobile phone call was made. A system designed for 1973 is still the backbone of how trillions of dollars cross borders every single day in 2026. The World Bank measured the cost of this system in the mid-2000s. The average cross-border payment cost between 7 and 10% of the transaction value. For a migrant worker sending $1,000 home to their family, $70 to $100 vanished into the correspondent chain before a single dollar arrived at its destination. Ryan Fugger called this unacceptable, and he built something to replace it. He called it RipplePay. RipplePay was not a cryptocurrency. It had no tokens, no blockchain, no mining. It was a peer-to-peer credit network, a system where trust between people replaced the need for a central financial institution. The concept was called a ripple. Like the rings that spread outward when a stone hits water, value would flow through networks of trusted relationships, reaching its destination without touching a single bank. The architecture was philosophically revolutionary. Technically, it worked, but it had one limitation that would take another 8 years to solve. Trust networks are human networks. They are local, they are bounded by relationships, and they cannot scale to the volume and velocity that global commerce demands. RipplePay operated for 7 years. Functional, elegant, and ahead of its time, waiting for technology to catch up to the vision. In 2011, it did. The upgrade that changed everything. 3 developers, Jed McCaleb, David Schwartz, and Arthur Brito, took Fugger's philosophical framework and rebuilt it from the ground up as a protocol, not a trust network, a shared public ledger, a consensus mechanism that allowed any financial institution on Earth to settle transactions against a neutral asset in 3 to 5 seconds at a fraction of a cent with no intermediary required. They called it the XRP Ledger. It went live in 2012, and the design decisions they made at that moment are the exact reasons why institutional ETF desks are paying serious attention in 2026. No mining, no proof of work, a validator consensus that reaches finality in 3 to 5 seconds. Not 10 minutes, not 2 days, sub-cent transaction fees, and zero energy-intensive computation, which means XRP clears the ESG compliance requirements that eliminate other digital assets from consideration by the world's largest asset managers. These were not features added later to attract institutions. They were architectural decisions made in 2012 by developers who understood exactly who they were building for. In 2012, Chris Larson joined the project. Ripple Labs was incorporated, and 80 billion XRP were created at Genesis. The infrastructure was live, the mission was clear, and the 22-year journey toward 2026 had officially begun. Now here is where the story gets interesting, because what happened next was almost invisible to the public eye. The decade nobody saw between 2013 and 2023 While the public narrative about XRP swung between price speculation and SEC lawsuit headlines, something else was happening entirely. Banks were quietly building on Ripple's infrastructure. In 2014, Fedor Bank in Germany became one of the first financial institutions to integrate Ripple's payment protocol. Then CBW Bank and Cross River Bank in the United States followed. These were not press release partnerships. These were technical integrations. Real institutions processing real transactions on Ripple's rails. By 2017, over 100 financial institutions had joined RippleNet, Ripple's standardized payment messaging layer that replaced Swift's batch processing model with real-time communication between banks. Then in 2018, Santander did something that should have made front-page financial news worldwide. They launched OnePay FX, a live, retail-facing international payment application powered by Ripple's technology, available to ordinary bank customers in the United Kingdom, Spain, Brazil, and Poland. Not a pilot, not a proof of concept, a product in the hands of real customers at one of Europe's largest banks. Standard Chartered, American Express, SBI Holdings in Japan, all announced Ripple partnerships during this period. But here is the crucial detail that almost every analyst missed. Every one of these institutions made carefully worded public statements that avoided explicitly committing to XRP as the settlement asset. They were using Ripple's infrastructure. They were testing the rails, but they were waiting for one thing before making that final commitment public: legal clarity in the United States. The lawsuit that accidentally proved XRP's value. In December 2020, the SEC filed suit against Ripple, alleging that XRP was an unregistered security. The price crashed. U.S. exchanges delisted XRP, and the mainstream narrative declared XRP finished. But here's what actually happened. Outside the United States, the adoption did not stop. It accelerated. Japan's Financial Services Agency had already classified XRP as a cryptocurrency under Japanese law. The UK's Financial Conduct Authority had taken a comparable position. Switzerland's FINMA had done the same. With the US market legally frozen, Ripple's global partnerships intensified in the jurisdictions where the legal clarity already existed. SBI Ripple Asia, the Tokyo-based joint venture between Ripple and SBI Holdings, expanded its Japanese bank network through the entire lawsuit period, ultimately connecting over 60 financial institutions on a live cross-border settlement network processing real transactions. Think about what that means. While US investors were being told XRP was dead, while exchanges were delisting it and commentators were writing its obituary, 60 Japanese banks were using its ledger to move money. That is not the behavior of a failed technology. That is the behavior of infrastructure that works, operating in the markets where it was legally permitted to operate, waiting for the rest of the world to catch up. Then in July 2023, Judge Annalisa Torres issued a partial ruling that determined XRP sold on public exchanges was not a security. The dam broke. The 12 months following the 2023 ruling produced something remarkable. XRP-related investment products absorbed over $1 billion in tracked institutional inflows by Q1 2025, according to digital asset flow data from on-chain analytics platforms covering that period. $1 billion. Before full regulatory clarity, before ETF approval, before the Clarity Act passed. That is not speculation. That is not retail money chasing a pump. That is institutional capital. Capital that moves slowly, carefully, and only after extensive due diligence, acquiring exposure to an asset before the crowd arrives. Because institutions do not chase price. They position before confirmation. And $1 billion of positioning before ETF approval tells you exactly what these desks concluded when they ran their infrastructure analysis on XRP. Then in early 2025, US regulators made it official. XRP was classified as a commodity, the same legal category as Bitcoin, clearing the formal pathway for XRP-based ETF products in the United States. Analysts tracking XRP-specific ETF scenarios began publishing inflow projections of $4 to $8 billion in potential institutional capital if ETF approval is granted. $4 to $8 billion, not retail, not speculation, pension funds, asset managers, treasury desks, the same class of institutional capital that transformed Bitcoin's market structure when the Bitcoin ETF was approved, now looking at XRP with a legal pathway that did not exist 12 months ago, and Ripple simultaneously filed for a regulated trust bank charter in the United States, the legal structure that would make Ripple a licensed custodian for institutional assets, fully embedded inside the regulated financial system. This is no longer a company on the outside of traditional finance knocking on the door. This is a company that is applying for the keys. Here is the part of the 2026 story that the ETF conversation is almost entirely missing. While analysts debate inflow projections and price targets, there are markets on this planet where XRP infrastructure is not a projection. It is not a forecast. It is not a potential future state. It is the present reality. In Tokyo, SBI Ripple Asia recently completed development of a token issuance platform built directly on the XRP Ledger, registered as a licensed prepaid payment instrument issuer under Japan's Payment Services Act. Businesses across Japan can now issue regulated digital tokens on the XRP Ledger, connected via API to existing applications and websites. End users transact with digital assets without any visible blockchain interface. The compliance is built in. The licensing is confirmed. The infrastructure is live. This is what real-world adoption looks like. Not a white paper, not a roadmap, a licensed product inside one of the world's most regulated financial frameworks, processing real transactions right now. In Bahrain, the central bank partnered with Ripple to pilot cross-border payments across the GCC corridor, one of the world's highest volume remittance routes, where migrant workers send billions of dollars annually between the Gulf states and South Asia. The documented cost reduction on those corridors exceeded 30% compared to traditional wire transfer infrastructure, according to data cited in Ripple's partnership disclosures covering that program. 30% cheaper, in a corridor that moves billions of dollars every year. That is not a marketing claim. That is a measured outcome from a live payment program. The continent that changes everything. And then there is Africa. Chainalysis documented over $200 billion in crypto transaction volume across sub-Saharan Africa in a recent 12-month reporting period. That figure represents growth that outpaces every other global region in the report. And the reason for that growth is the same problem Ryan Fugger identified in Vancouver in 2004. Correspondent banking is expensive. In the corridors between West Africa and Europe, where millions of diaspora workers send remittances home every month, the average cost of a wire transfer still exceeds 6% of transaction value in many corridors, according to World Bank remittance price data covering current transfer costs. XRP's transaction profile, 3 to 5 second settlement, sub-cent fees, no correspondent chain, is a direct technical solution to that exact problem. And Ripple is not sleeping on this opportunity. The company has been actively expanding its stablecoin infrastructure across the African market, building custody partnerships, and pursuing regulatory licenses in multiple African jurisdictions. Now connect that to the ETF conversation. When an institutional ETF desk evaluates XRP in 2026, they are not evaluating a speculative token that exists only on exchange order books. They are evaluating an asset that simultaneously functions as a commodity under US law, a licensed payment infrastructure component in Japan, a documented cost reduction tool in Middle Eastern payment corridors, and an emerging market financial infrastructure layer across a continent that processed $200 billion in crypto volume in a single year. That risk profile, that breadth of real-world utility across regulated and emerging environments, is something no other digital asset in the current ETF conversation can match. Ryan Fugger wanted to build a system where trust between people replaced the need for banks. What he actually built, through 22 years of evolution, technical rebuilds, institutional partnerships, legal battles, and global deployment, is a settlement infrastructure that the banks themselves are now licensing. 60 Japanese banks, Santander, Standard Chartered, the Central Bank of Bahrain, SBI Holdings. The institutions that were supposed to be disrupted are now the ones building on the disruptor's infrastructure. And in 2026, with commodity classification confirmed, ETF pathways open, and institutional inflows already exceeding $1 billion before formal approval, the world is finally catching up to what Ryan Fugger saw in Vancouver 22 years ago. Let us bring the entire arc into focus, because this is the moment where the 22-year story becomes a single clear thesis. In 2004, Ryan Fugger identified a structural failure in global finance and proposed a trust-based solution that was philosophically correct but technically limited. In 2012, the XRP Ledger solved the technical limitation, building speed, cost efficiency, and institutional-grade architecture directly into the consensus mechanism. Between 2012 and 2023, Ripple spent a decade embedding that infrastructure into real financial institutions across Japan, Europe, and the Middle East, while navigating a legal battle in the United States that froze domestic institutional commitment but could not stop global adoption. In 2025, commodity classification removed the last major legal barrier. institutional inflows crossed $1 billion. ETF projections of $4 to $8 billion entered mainstream analyst coverage. And Ripple filed for a trust bank charter that would embed the company permanently inside the regulated U.S. financial system. In 2026, the infrastructure is licensed and live in Japan. The payment corridors in the Middle East are documenting 30% cost reductions on live transaction volumes. Africa is processing $200 billion in crypto volume annually and growing. And the Clarity Act is approaching a Senate decision window that could unlock the largest single wave of institutional capital XRP has ever seen. Now, the honest part. Regulatory timelines do not move on market schedules. The trust bank charter is not guaranteed. ETF approval is a process, not a certainty, and XRP's price has historically diverged from its fundamental development for extended periods. The infrastructure story and the market story do not always synchronize on the timeline investors want. But here is what 22 years of documented evidence tells you that no price chart can. This infrastructure was not built for a cycle. It was not built for a bull run. It was built to solve a problem that has existed in global finance since 1973. And it has been solving that problem in licensed environments across multiple continents for years already. The question is not whether XRP works. 60 Japanese banks, the Central Bank of Bahrain, and Santander's retail customers already answered that question. The question in 2026 is how fast the rest of the world's institutional capital catches up to what the infrastructure already is. And based on everything we have just walked through, the answer to that question is arriving faster than most people realize. Now that you have the complete picture, from Ryan Fugger's 2004 credit network all the way through the 2026 institutional positioning, the next video covers the specific on-chain signals and price levels that institutional desks are watching right now as the Clarity Act moves toward a Senate vote. We will break down exactly what $4 to $8 billion in ETF inflows does to XRP's liquidity structure, and what the data says about timing. Subscribe so that video hits your feed the moment it drops. I will see you there.